Okay, so I really wanted to like Final Cut Pro. Now, I am a DaVinci Resolve user. I have been for quite some time. And before that, I edited in Premiere Pro. But when they went over to the subscription-based system, I wanted no part of that. I moved over to DaVinci. Now, I really like DaVinci, but I feel like I could do better as far as how quickly I can edit things. I'm finding that there's still a few clunky things in DaVinci Resolve. Or maybe not. Actually, I discovered something about DaVinci Resolve. Anyway, let's jump on over to the computer and let's take a look at both of these tools and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start with Final Cut Pro. Now, truth be told, I don't really know Final Cut Pro all that well. Obviously, nowhere near as well as I know DaVinci Resolve. So some of these issues I'm having is probably just user education or lack thereof. So one of the issues that I don't like is how this screen here is constantly changing. Like I'm just moving my mouse and it's constantly changing, and I come up here and it switched again on me. And I just feel like I don't have any control over what I'm seeing. Like maybe I want to browse around and look for things, but I don't want this to change on me constantly. First impression is not very good on that. Another thing is, see, I'll just play this for a second. So obviously I'm not going to end up using that audio, but I might want to use little bits of it. So what I'll do sometimes in DaVinci Resolve anyway, I just go over here to the left side and I can hit mute for the audio track. And I don't have any controls, none. Obviously I can grab each individual clip and bring this down, but I don't understand why that wouldn't be right on the interface. So as far as how to add things to the timeline, I find it's not quite as smooth as I have with DaVinci Resolve. Let's say I want to add something in here. I want to add this clip. I have no playhead. So if I hit play on this, we're seeing that clip. I'm trying to get a steady shot here. Now, I know I can use my I or O on the keyboard, but see, I moved my mouse, so I don't even know where I was now. If I hit play now, it's going to play from wherever my mouse was, hovering over the clip. That is absolutely no good. I would just like it to stop and start where I stop and start it. It doesn't seem to do that if I move my mouse at all, unless I just stay on this side. Again, I don't like that kind of limitation. And I would love to have a playhead under here. So when I do my in and out, say that's my in point, and I can see, and I'm afraid to even move my mouse to point because it's going to mess it up, but over here, that's my in, and I'll let it play more. Let's say that's my out, and I'll grab this and drop it in the timeline. So on these clips, I've actually detached the audio. I guess it would be considered link or unlink in the DaVinci world. So I have to right click here and detach audio. I just don't like that I don't see it on its own separate track down here. Again, because I could mute that and not disable the video portion. I have no controls at all on these tracks. I can't tell, obviously like looking at it, I can tell this is one video track, but I would like to see V1, V2, V3, audio 1, audio 2, audio 3, and see the corresponding slider controls for my audio somewhere in the interface. So obviously I'm sure all the other controls, if you hover over things and they'll switch to the tool that you want. I don't see something here where I can just click on the tool that I want in case I don't remember. Maybe it's a tool I don't use that often and I don't remember a shortcut and I don't want to necessarily dig into menus. In fact, I don't even know if you have that option in Final Cut Pro to just pick a tool, or if it thinks that it's going to do all that deciding for you. Anyway, honestly, enough of Final Cut. I'm not a fan. Okay, so we're in DaVinci Resolve. And actually, I should mention that in Final Cut, that is an older version of Final Cut. And the reason for that is because this computer is an older Mac Tower. So I can't actually run anything other than Mojave on it. I know it's pretty old, but the interesting thing is that with DaVinci, I can load up the latest and greatest DaVinci. Yet with Apple itself, it knows I'm running it on an Apple computer, Final Cut, and it's Final Cut. It only works on Apple computers. Yet they make it so that you can't even run it on an older machine, one of their own machines. Yet DaVinci Resolve is doing it. So I'm sorry, that's kind of inexcusable. So let's just go through some of the same functions that I just showed here. Like I said, see, we got a video 1, video 2, audio 1, audio 2. I want to mute the audio. See, I've already done it on this one. So there, I can play it back without the annoying wind noise and whatever, because I'm not using that audio. Okay. I like the fact that it's on separate tracks. I like the fact that the clips are linked together like this, the audio and the video. But I can also use Option click to just select the audio piece there, and I'm still holding Option, and then I can change where the audio comes in. So I want the audio from the next clip to come in a little early. These L and J cuts, I can do that no problem without even detaching. So I could still move this as one entity later if I want. So that really speeds up the way I edit those pieces. And then like I mentioned before, these are the tools up here. Generally, I switch between the selection mode, the blade mode, and the trim mode. And let's just zoom in here for a second, show you what I would do. So trim mode, for example, I'll just let it play. Let's say I wanted to start it there. So I let the playhead, this is the thing I like about the way the playhead works here, it'll just stop there. See, I'm scrolling around, but nothing in my viewer is changing, which is nice. I'll just press the T on the keyboard and then grab this, I hover over like this and drag it in. For those of you who know how these tools work, I mean, that's nothing new, but I just like the way that it works here in DaVinci over Final Cut. If I want to just remove a piece, I have 2 deletes on my keyboard. I have the extended keyboard here, and if I hit the one that's in the cluster where you have the home and end keys, it just pulls it in like that, shortens the edit, but I'll just undo that. If I use the other delete, it'll actually leave a gap for me. And I mentioned that I'd found something out about DaVinci, and really part of that is just practicing a little bit with the trim tool a little bit more. So trim, and again, I know you can do this on both sides. I just like the fact that I can choose the tools a little easier. It's not trying to guess what I want to do based on where I'm hovering exactly. Yes, it has that ability, but it also has the ability to just choose the tool directly, which I like, as well as shortcuts. But again, if you use a set of things all the time, but once in a while you want to switch it up and you're going to try a different tool, you probably won't even know to try the different tool because it doesn't physically exist on the interface in a way that you can find it. So yes, there's a lot of things on this interface, but that's what I like about it, is the fact that you can find everything. Just like why people like a lot of the older analog cameras with the knobs with every possible setting that you would need is physically on top of the camera. And we like that because it's tactile. It allows us to just look and try to find it rather than have to know a combination of keys or dig into menus, because usually we just don't have the time for that. And that's what this is all about, is how to speed up our editing process. And the other thing is just having a little patience at the beginning and making use of proxy files. Now, I've been using optimized media for quite some time, and like I said, I have an older computer here, so it's well beyond its years. I really need to upgrade. But in the meantime, if I just do a batch job on proxy files at the very beginning of each project, then you'll see like this, like everything moves pretty smooth. Play it back. Here's my frame rate here. You'll see I'm not dropping any frames at all, and I can just real time, just scroll back and forth, no problem. Super smooth. And that is because even though I literally have a 2 gig video card on here, I know many of you probably have at least 4 gig. Okay, so what I do is I choose proxy media format at ProRes 422 proxy, because ProRes, it runs so smooth compared to any H.264 codec on virtually every computer. Proxy media resolution is half. So I'm making like a 1080p file out of my 4K footage to begin with, and then make sure that on my playback, I use the proxy media if available, as well as the proxy mode. I turn it on to half resolution. I wasn't even on there. So half of that resolution. So it's probably like 720p. But if you look in the frame that I'm working in, it still looks great. But that's even smoother there for the scrolling back and forth. Super smooth. I'm playing back. 0 frames dropped. Now, of course, I haven't done any color grading or anything else, and that brings up the last point, well, one of the last points. I have a tendency, or I have had a tendency, of color grading things as I go along because I just love to see the way things are going to look in the end. And the problem with that, especially on an older computer, is it slows me down. I really have to be more disciplined, do my first assembly edit, then refine my edit before I ever touch any kind of a color grade or titles. And that brings up pretty much my last point in here, which is any kind of motion graphics, any titles or any kind of 3D rendering or whatever in this older computer. Again, this is not an issue with DaVinci Resolve. This is just because I have an older computer. I'm sure many of you may not have the latest spec computer. And either way, you want to speed things up. So I really have to leave the motion graphics to the absolute end, even after color grading, because even with the proxy stuff, it really slows down. Now, it seems okay here because I'm doing against a black background. So that's going to be something I pay attention to in my workflow from now moving forward. I want to make sure I don't try to do any level of color grade beforehand, utilize my trim tool as much as possible, and obviously shortcuts. Not a lot of shortcuts to remember when you're in edit, because basically I use the A, T, and the B for the blade. I haven't shown how I use a blade. The blade basically like this. I would switch to B, click, and normally I'll go back to A, select the part that I don't want, hit my delete, and it shortens my edit. And that's great for when you have a long piece of dialogue and you want to cut it up, get rid of any of your dead spaces. Great for YouTube videos. So as far as putting together an edit, it's much quicker. And the added bonus here is that I really love color grading in DaVinci Resolve. Once you start color grading in a node-based system like this, it's really hard to go back to, it feels like a very amateurish way that they do it in Final Cut. Yeah, you have a few of these color wheels and maybe a curves adjustment, but you don't have the detail control that you do over here using tools like the stabilizer in here or the color warper to get skin tones right. There's just so many amazing tools in here. I just really like the way everything's laid out and the way it works in DaVinci. It just makes sense to my mind. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. Are you a Final Cut Pro user or a DaVinci Resolve user? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me what you like about your editing tool of choice. And I hope this video was helpful, or at least entertaining. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.